Thank you.
So I guess now we're moving on to the judicial races.
Yeah, we're definitely moving on to judicial, and you know, it's you've got that's where the contested races are and the battles. Like in Jewish Chicago, I think I've got about 30 ads in there, and 24 of them are from judges. So you know, it'll be very interesting along those lines. Now, in the there are about a half a dozen uncontested races. In some, you know, it's interesting to point out why some races are uncontested. Like, for instance, David Ellis has a little bit of political pull in the appeals thing, and nobody really wanted to run against him. By the same token, there's other people, too, that either have enough pull or enough money that people figure, well, I think I'm going to pick a different race because I'll have a better chance to win in those races. But in the first contested race, and I guess I should flip my Jewish Chicago open so I'll see all the opponents, you know, it's unfortunate because some of these races have multiple good people running. And you know, you can't always have everybody. In the first vacancy, and you know, I'm not going to get into the particular names of the vacancies, and sorry, I got to put on my glasses for a minute, folks. So, you know, you've got Bridget Andrea Mitchell and Alfred Swanson running, and that's pretty close. I didn't endorse in that race. And the reason I didn't endorse is their ratings are so similar. And they're both quality people that I just couldn't find a difference.
Yeah, Judge Swanson's a sitting judge. He's been appointed by the Supreme Court.
Oh, and by the way, also a former radio guy on NBC, on WMAQ.
Yes, yes. He's got a very interesting career, and he's been sitting as a judge by appointment, and he's seeking now to be voted into office.
Yeah, in the second race we're going to mention, we've got, oh, I'm not going in order here. Sorry, guys. You know what? Let's go in the order. We've got the list here. Oh, Judge Peter Vilkelis. It is in order. Judge Peter Vilkelis is running against Crystal Rivers, who actually got more watches on YouTube than any other guests I had. You know, I don't know if that's because she's an attractive lady. She's also very well spoken. But the fact is that she also got some poor marks from some of the bar associations. Guys, you got Judge Peter Vilkelis to put up? Or I'm just not going to see it here. Probably I'm not going to see it here.
There he is.
Okay, thanks. Now, he is a sitting judge. He got good marks from everybody. He didn't have a single bad mark. And, you know, basically, he's the guy that gets my nod in this race. He's in Jewish Chicago, by the way. I don't really make the picks. I mean, I do have final say, so to speak. But I divide it down into, I speak to at least 20 different judges to see what they have to say, and people that are lawyers and legal experts, to hear what they know about these people that they've been in front of and served in front of, and you know, try to go along those lines. Also, the bar ratings come into play, and unfortunately, not all the bar ratings came out when I put out Jewish Chicago, and there's two races where I'm going to flip-flop a little bit from what I said in Jewish Chicago, but we're not there yet. But Vilkelis is who I endorsed in this particular race, and he's got good marks throughout. Crystal Rivers has some negatives. You know, hopefully over the years she'll improve because she's a pretty decent person herself. You've got a number of unopposed races. That's Daniel Kubasiak, Patricia O'Brien Sheehan, Carolyn Kate Moreland, and Thomas J. Carroll. Then you've got the vacancy between Judge Cynthia Cobb and Linda Mast-Andrea. And just so you know, we have over 50 judicial interviews on our website. If you go to ntnm.org, you'll find a link to YouTube where you can actually watch all those interviews in their entirety and make your own mind. Cynthia Cobb is actually, you know, she's an intelligent woman. She's a sitting judge. Linda Mast-Andrea is a pretty good lawyer herself. She's actually a para-Olympic type person. I don't know if she actually appeared in the Olympics, but she's quite an athlete. Lives in next door Rogers Park. And once again, it's like the ratings were pretty even. And in this particular race, you know, I didn't make a choice. So, I mean, you can't go wrong either way. There are races like that. Now, in the next vacancy, you do have a contested race. Basically, you've got Carolyn Joan Gallagher, who lives in Evanston, who's a very impressive person. You've got William B. Raines, slide. Got to pay more attention to slides, guys. Thank you. And he's got a very interesting background. He was a police officer and a sheriff type, and he actually was wounded in the line of duty. And he had to retire. He went to law school out in Frisco. I think he was wounded out in Oakland, and came back here. He's highly thought of by both the law enforcement community, and he is the endorsed Democratic candidate. I still like him anyway, though. So, I mean, listen, that's neither here nor there whether you're an endorsed candidate. Another pretty good candidate is Patricia Spratt. She actually works in Larry Sepperton's law firm, and she did get one well qualified from the Decalogue Society of all things, which for an Irish person is interesting because that's the Jewish legal society. And there's Mary Alice Melcher, who's a very nice lady also. So you've got 4 pretty decent people in this particular race. I basically, Bill Raines was pretty much the consensus. Now, one race I would change from what I said in Jewish Chicago is the race between the endorsed candidate Diana Rosario, who I happen to like, and Stephen Feldman. I only had the ratings of 2 separate bar associations when the paper came out. And Stephen Feldman had 1 big thumbs down, and Diana had 2 she's okays. In the meantime, 4 non-qualifieds or non-recommendeds came out, and that's over and above the limit where an endorsement should have been given. So basically, Jewish Chicago withdraws its endorsement in that particular race. Have you practiced in front of these people, any of these people, Jim?
I have not, no.
You know, see, even the expert lawyers, they don't get to appear before quite everybody. In the next race, and we'll get down to everything but the sub-circuits before we take our guest, we've got Judge Andrea Michelle Buford, very personable person. She's a sitting judge. You've got James Patrick Crawley, who I was very impressed with, and you've got Kelly Maloney Kaczmarek, who has -0 bar ratings. And basically, in this particular race, I went for James Crowley. Well, it's not. I shouldn't say me. The judicial panel really liked James Crowley. He had pretty decent marks. Buford does too. This was closer than most, but basically, I felt it was important in this particular case to go with Crawley. So, we are waiting for Michael Strom to call in. He'll be calling in any minute. But before we go into the sub-circuits, Jim, why don't you explain to us how the sub-circuits work and why they were built?
Well, the sub-circuits originated about 20 years ago, and the main purpose was to see that there'd be more diversity on the bench. Up until that time, people either ran countywide in Cook County, as some judges still do, or they ran city only or suburban only. And what the sub-circuits did was broke the county down into 15 separate districts, and it allows for people, there are 10 openings in each district, and it allows for people to run, and the voters who are choosing them are in that district. And the idea would be that, at least in those judicial races, the voters would get to know these candidates better. Quite frankly, if you're running countywide, it is extremely expensive to do mailings or TV commercials or anything to try to reach every county voter. Whereas if you're running in a sub-circuit, it's still expensive, but it's doable if you want to get your message out that you could mail every registered household in the district with brochure telling the voters about your qualification.
Yeah, basically 1/15 the mailing cost. At this point, we have our other call-in guests, the highest rated judicial candidate on the ballot. Michael, we are just introducing you. The highest rated judicial candidate on the ballot, Michael Strom. Michael, can you hear me? Michael, can you hear me? Hello? Guys, you want to patch Michael back in there? While we're waiting for Michael, Michael's running in the 9th Judicial Sub-Circuit. He actually has 4 opponents. There are 3 different races within the 9th Sub-Circuit. Guys, when you get Michael back on, just, you can patch. Is he back on?
I'm there.
Can you hear us, Michael?
Bobby?
Hi there.
Hello.
Michael, Jim, talk. Maybe.
Hello. Michael, can you hear us?
Hello.
Can you hear us, Michael? Apparently not.
Okay, well, guys, try to fix.
Shouting into the void.
Try to fix this up, guys. And don't put Michael on the air unless you're sure this is going to work and you can talk with him back and forth. Okay? So you've got 3 races total, and this is really where there's more action than any other sub-circuit.
Yeah, the ninth sub-circuit for people to know is basically Evanston, it's parts of Wilmette, Skokie, Glenview, Morton Grove, and then it takes in a chunk of the city of Chicago on the north side, 50th Ward, 49th Ward, is down into a few precincts in 48, I believe, and there's a few in 40 as well.
There's 1 in 40.
Yeah. So it's kind
I
of
think
the
it's Dennis's, by the way.
could be. And then it goes out northwest. There's precincts in the 39th Ward that
Yeah.
are part of it. So you really have to look at these maps because they cut in and out, and one side of the street can be in one sub-circuit and the other side could be in another. But it's kind of the northern wards in the city of Chicago, and then the close-in northern suburbs like Evanston, Wilmette, Skokie, in that area. So you kind of have to check. If you look on your voter registration card, everybody received new voter registration cards this cycle in the mail, or you should have.
I actually got 2.
Okay.
Does anybody get to vote
No,
twice?
you can only use one.
Okay, I think our technical problems are fixed.
Hello.
Michael, can you hear us?
And I can't hear anybody.
Okay. Guys, you should tell Michael to wait to respond to us, please, when you get him on next time. You know, in other words, flash his name on the screen. I'll say hello, Michael, and then see if you can patch everything in, okay? Otherwise, his voice shouldn't be coming up. Sorry, Michael. I mean, we'll. I've interviewed Michael 3 times. You got to go to YouTube if we can't get him on. Hopefully, we'll get him on, and that would be nice. Of the 12 bar associations, Michael's got the highest ratings from 8 of them, which is, are we going to give it a, Michael, can you hear us? Well, that's his face on the screen right now. So I guess let's talk about him. I met him the first time about 10 years ago over at Larry Sepperton used to have an annual July 4th picnic, and very interesting cast of characters, including a bunch of people that always want to be judge. And he's really been a student of the whole judicial scene. And he has the highest possible bar ratings from 8 of the 12 bar associations. Of the bar associations, I think most people would agree that you give the Chicago Bar Association the highest rating, that they probably do the most thorough job, and they're the most objective, and he's got highly qualified from them. On top of that, would you say Illinois State Bar Association of Cook County, Jim, or?
Yeah, those are those are the largest bar associations. Chicago, Cook County, the Chicago Council of Lawyers. They have the largest number of members, so they have the broadest base usually of people who are part of the interviewing process, and then there's an alliance process for some of the smaller bar associations, the ethnic bar associations, the Decalogue, the Puerto Rican Bar Association. Those are a couple of them. There's about a dozen smaller interests bar associations, and they have a single questionnaire that they send. These judges, if you're running for judge, you really have to put a lot of information in. All the bar associations ask you very detailed questions about how many trials you've done, how long you've been practicing, what areas you've practiced in, and then you have to list judges that you've appeared in front of. You have to list, and this is a very interesting thing, you list people who, attorneys who opposed you on cases. So you were representing one party and they were representing the other. And they go out and interview these people and ask their opinion, which is I think, a very good way to make sure you get a solid rating on someone, because they'll talk to people who are on the other side of a case. And with attorneys, obviously, you're representing a client, you're doing as much as you can to represent that client as zealously as you can, but you still want to be professional. And they will talk to opponents and say, well, did he do a good job for his client, or did she act in a professional manner? Were there things that she did that you shouldn't have done or he did? So all this information is compiled, and then each of the bar associations have a judicial evaluation committee that takes this information that they get from third parties, and then they also do personal interviews of all the judicial candidates. So it's a very thorough and time-consuming process, and particularly for the people who are running it. They spend hours and hours and hours putting together this information for the questionnaires and then appearing and interviewing. So it's very well vetted, and as Avi pointed out, very often somebody may not get, if there's a dozen bar associations, there may be one or two who don't like a particular candidate. So you kind of want to look at the overall impression.
Very much so, because all it takes is one person with the chip on their shoulder. But also, it's one of the reasons we were talking about giving the weight to those three. Almost everybody else has a prejudice or two. And for instance, if you take a look at the Puerto Rican Association, it's no surprise that the Puerto Rican candidate might get a highly qualified from the Puerto Rican Bar Association and no one else. And that is true this election in one case. Same thing with the Indo-American Bar Association. We're going to try one last time with Michael Strom. Hopefully he is there. Michael, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're going to have to cut this a little shorter than we wanted to because unfortunately we had the technical difficulties. But first of all, thank you so much for calling in. And
Well, thanks for having me.
why don't you tell us a little, and Jim Nally, my co-host, is here.
I've been enjoying Jim's analysis.
And why don't you tell us something about yourself?
Well, I have 36 years of courtroom experience. I've been a leader in the bar as president of the Decalogue Society of Lawyers. Presidency just ended last June. I've done a lot of community service work, partnering with groups of bar associations and providing direct services to children of need in the inner city. I'm blessed to have the endorsement and support of Senator Dick Durbin and of David Orr, a couple people who I think really stand for excellence, honesty in government. As you've noted, while I was listening, I do have the best overall bar ratings. Of the 12 bars that have rated candidates in my race, there's not a single one of those organizations who's rated anybody higher than me.
Actually, in all the judicial races, no one has more highly qualified and highest possible ratings than you. Every appellate, circuit court, sub-circuit, you the highest.
Well, I've worked hard for that reputation, but I certainly really appreciate the fact the recognition's there from the bar associations.
No, that's definitely important, and there's no question about it. So where have you been campaigning this morning?
Well, I just finished a presentation at the Skokie Central Traditional Congregation. After the morning davening, there was a breakfast and the most free-ranging conversation imaginable, covering matters of law, culture, religion, the old neighborhoods. It was a lot of fun.
No, it definitely sounds it. And are you more appearances today later on?
As soon as I have finished talking with you and your audience and Jim Nally and all the good folks who are going to be on the show, I'm going to be going to a church in Evanston with they have a little different religious experience there, a lot more gospel, and that should be fun as well.
Well, you'll definitely get your fill of interesting music today, that's for sure.
No question.
Yeah, your ballot number?
It is 179. Punch 179 and everything's fine.
Punch 179, everything is fine. The highest rated judicial candidate on the ballot, somebody that I think, in my mind, and I wrote this in the paper too, and not a single bad word from anybody in any bar association or any judge or lawyer about him, somebody who's universally highly thought of, who's in a 5-person race, so you never know how those things are going to go. Please make it a point election day or during early voting to, if you live in the 9th Sub-Circuit, to punch 179 for Michael Strom.
Well, thank you so much, Avi. I appreciate Jewish Chicago's not only their support, but the really extensive and thorough coverage between the publication and Northtown News Magazine that you provide that people can't get anywhere else. The experience of seeing and hearing the people that might be handling their cases and reading such extensive analysis. Thank you for what you do, Avi.
First of all, thank you, Michael, and I hope we will be calling you Judge very soon in the near future.
I hope that's true, and I hope it'll be accurate.
I hope so, too. Good luck on the campaign trail. 179, Michael Strom, punch 179.
Thanks, Avi.
Thank you. So I'm glad we got him.
Yes, technical difficulties were overcome. We have a great technical staff. I knew that they'd bring him in.
No question. Thanks, Keith, and thanks, Sonny. We appreciate your taking care of that. So let's talk about the other 9 sub-circuit races, and then we'll get to 10 and to 12. In what I consider the toughest race of all, the 3 highest qualified candidates, to me, no one else is calling in. The 3 highest rated candidates are Michael Strom, Jerry Esrig, and Megan Goldish. And you know what? 2 of them are running against each other, which is a real crying shame. And there was no way I was going to endorse separately between Megan and Esrig. I mean, they come at you on different levels. You know what? I know you know Megan better than Esrig, so.
Yeah, I've worked with Megan and you know, helped her with her campaign stuff. So she's a very well-regarded assistant state's attorney, has done some wonderful things there. And she also, in addition to that, has a very extensive base in the community of community service as well. So she's a very well-rounded person.
No question. She also, you know, heads a division at 26th and Cal for serious felony trials. And the law enforcement community thinks the world of her. And she also gets very, very high marks from judges. She's appeared in front of for her preparedness and her ability to conduct trials. So, you know, there was another race in the 9th. I wish she had chosen it, but you got to deal with what is, and that's the way it is. She is an extraordinarily high-quality person, and no question about it. Also, want to say hi to Sean Tunner, her campaign manager, who I've worked with on many occasions in the past. When I say worked with, you know, through the newspaper, all the rest of it, I don't work for political candidates. That I don't do. There are a couple exceptions I would make, but you can read about it in Jewish Chicago. That's probably not going to happen. I'll tell you a little bit more about Jerry Esrig, because I know him a bit better. Jerry is unbelievable. I really have trouble believing that anybody wanted to oppose him at all. Jerry Esrig has been a distinguished lawyer for something like close to 35 years. He was in the same law firm as Jim Epstein. Jim Epstein is probably, if he's not the highest thought of Jewish lawyer, he's an appellate court judge. He has about as much respect as a judge can possibly get from fellow members of the judiciary and lawyers.
Yeah, Jim was a trial judge first, and now he's a really excellent appellate judge.
And really knows his stuff inside out. And frankly, Jerry is of similar qualities in so many ways. Of course, everybody's a little bit different. But, you know, and you should watch the interviews I've done with him as well as with Megan. He is extremely bright legally. I mean, that's an understatement. He thinks things out thoroughly. He is, you know, he's got I don't know, I was looking for a funny phrase, but, you know, he is very judicious in the way he acts and the way he presents himself. And, you know, which is really what you want to see in a judge. Because you know what, when I've got like 12 to 14 judges running around my living room, which is the green room, waiting to come on the show, sometimes these guys don't show such good judgment. But, you know, he's perennially there with good judgment. And he's a high quality person. And you know what, I can't endorse one. I have nothing bad to say about either one of them, other than I wish they were in different races. But you know what, this is as good can get in one race. And whoever, unfortunately, does not win, I hope gets appointed to a judgeship in the near future. In the other race in the 9th sub-circuit, you've got Angela Hansen, who is pretty much the endorsed candidate, who's a former state's attorney, former Evanston alderman, has the support of Schakowsky and Company. You've got Monica Forte, who's a pretty good attorney and in private practice. This is her first venture into this. Then you have another guy who isn't running a campaign, Kusius. So, oh, I did see a yard sign, but he's really not running a campaign. So in any event, in that particular race, I went with Hansen. In the 10th, and that's another place I want to make a correction from Jewish Chicago, and that's an important correction. I only had the bar ratings of 2 different organizations each for that race when Jewish Chicago went to print. And I really like Catherine O'Dell a lot. Tony Kirakopoulos, who's a sitting judge, is a delightful individual, to put it mildly. Very intelligent. So what I had was pretty close, with Kirakopoulos having a slight edge, but I didn't have the other 10. Unfortunately, in seeing the other 10, Kirakopoulos' opponent came in with a bunch of not qualifieds. So if I had to do the issue, if I had the same information in front of me, even though, like I said, I just get to sum everything up. People had good things to say about O'Dell in the judicial community. They had good things to say about Kirakopoulos. But given Kirakopoulos' superior bar ratings, he would get my nod today. He would get the Jewish Chicago nod today. In the 12th, and then I'll let you do a summary, you got 3 people I really like. You've got Ralph Metchik, who has handled some of the biggest high-profile defense cases in Chicago. I happen to like the guy. I mean, I was told all kinds of interesting things both ways. I was very impressed with him. You've got James Edward Hanlon, another terrific guy. Good ratings across the board. And Judge James Kaplan, who's a real favorite of judges in the judicial community. In that particular race, it is the favoritism of the judges, because Hanlon and Kaplan had the same marks that led me to endorse James Kaplan. But, I mean, all 3 of them are real good, but Kaplan gets the endorsement. Jim, we've only got a couple of minutes here, so what would you like to say about the election and let people know?
Well, again, everything is all the forecasts are it's going to be a very low turnout election, which if you want to really, increase the value of your vote, this is the election to vote in, because with a smaller turnout, obviously, every vote counts.
And at this point, I want to thank Jim Nally, my co-host. I want to thank my in-studio guests, Cynthia Santos and Tom Courtney. I want to thank my technical crew, Sonny Hirsch, Keith McDonald, and Jabari Tolliver. I want to thank all of you for joining us. This will re-air March 17th at 9 p.m. on CanTV 19, Tuesday, March 19th at 4 p.m. on CanTV 19. Final words, Jim.
Again, get out and vote. You still have time to early vote, so it can't be easier.
No, definitely get out there and vote. Take advantage of all these different facilities. There is nothing more important that can happen to you if you appear before a judge. You can lose your freedom, your life, your marriage, all kinds of things. The bad guy who should have been taken off the street can be taken off the street with the right judge, and maybe he won't be with the wrong judge. Give serious consideration to not just voting Democratic, to vote for these judges. And I'm not a Democrat, but start from the bottom of the ballot so you don't run out of time and skip. There's a thorough evaluation in Jewish Chicago. You can go online and get the Bar Association, Chicago Bar Association, a number of other things. I can't begin to tell you the importance. I hope you'll vote. I want to thank everybody here at CanTV for all their help, all their cooperation. I want to thank all of you for being here. Check us out online at ntnm.org. Every single show we've done over the last 8 years is on YouTube. And thanks to everybody who had input today, and good luck, and make sure you vote. And thank you, Jim.
Thanks for having me again, Avi. It's always fun.